Donald Trump may impose martial law type order on April 20th. We're almost there. We're on the countdown. And considering what Stephen Miller's been doing with regard to the forced deportations, this seems like increasingly likely. For a while, I thought it was less likely because it seemed like they weren't engaging in the necessary prep work for it, like, you know, ramping up the stakes, making arguments in favor of the idea that we need more power to secure the border. But it seems like they're just going to do it, like they won't even need justification. Like they're just going to do it without any of the necessary prep work. So like this would be martial law forever, or? Well, you know, I'm glad you asked that question here. As the only live streamer who's capable of actual divination, I can give an answer to you for that. Don't give them attention. I understand that people are despairing. It's just that you do it in a way that annoys me, which is a huge problem for me personally. Yeah, if they're going to invoke the Insurrection Act, it would be coming pretty soon. Does martial law stop you from traveling abroad? It doesn't stop you from traveling, necessarily. It just suspends a bunch of legal rights with regards to your engagements with the police and the military police. They can do whatever they want, basically. According to the Insurrection Act of 1807, the President of the United States may permit the deployment of the military and U.S. National Guard to ensure the law is enforced in certain conditions and situations. It authorizes the military to completely suppress any rebellion, uprising, any act of violence or resistance, including that by citizens. So just imagine what Stephen Miller would argue is an act of violence or resistance. This channel would probably qualify. The Insurrection Act has the power to override the Posse Comitatus Act, which is normally in place at all times, and prohibits the U.S. military from participating or interfering in any civilian law enforcement. It also gives the President, the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, complete powers to decide if and when and where to deploy U.S. troops within the United States of America. So that's cool. The Insurrection Act, however, is different from martial law. While a martial law gives complete control of administration and running of the state's affairs to a military general, the Insurrection Act keeps the powers of the state administration with the U.S. president, who selectively uses military powers to enforce law and order. So effectively, the Insurrection Act is actually worse than martial law. Martial law would mean, military control or assumption of military control. In this case, it would just be everything is folded under presidential control, which is cool. Wouldn't martial law for even one major city cost a ton of money? I mean, it kind of depends, right? Like, for one, they would be willing to spend it. And for two, I mean, it depends on their proximity to military bases, where they're deployed, how they're deployed. But functionally, yeah, it's an expensive way of running a country, for the most part. Any chance Trump's milking this so he can be the hero that extracts this dude from El Salvador? Zero. This isn't even related to that. And no, he said the exact opposite. He's openly bragging about defying the Supreme Court. Legal experts have long argued that the Insurrection Act of 1807 is archaic, dangerously vague, and in urgent need of reform. Really? You're telling me? I think odds are the Maryland guy is already dead. No, I fully disagree. I think he's 100% alive, and the Trump administration, and specifically Miller, just don't want any judicial checks on their behavior. They don't want anyone to be able to go, well, that guy was actually innocent, so we should send him back. Total, absolute power with no checks, no authority over them, no checks and balances. They can do anything they want. Also, bad press if he tells us stories. That is true. We're coming up on the deadline. You know what's really f***ed up? If you Google Insurrection Act 420, haha, I know, you don't get any mainstream news articles. Indivisible, Shreveport Times, migrationpolicy.org, Alt National Park Service, Facebook, a YouTube link, Hindustan Times, Truth Out, Yahoo, love my liberal media blackout, yep. Think the date's chosen to distract? No. I think it's just that was 90 days after the order was signed. Have you tried searching via Bing? Financial Express, Mice SA, NDTV, Tallahassee Democrat. Guess it's just not worth the time of organizations like CNN, MSNBC, AP News, Reuters, whatever else. Too busy covering BreederCon? Yeah, I suppose that's true. Breeder what? Watch the goddamn stream. I got this via DuckDuckGo on Insurrection Act. I mentioned the Tallahassee News, didn't I? If not, Tallahassee Democrat isn't exactly what I was thinking of when I said mainstream news organization. Vosh, I'm scared. That's cool. Don't make it my problem. Be cool in the face of adversity, okay? Don't be cringe. I'm actually lying. I don't really care. Yeah, that's kind of why we're in this position, to be honest with you, you know? There are people like in countries where their government does very little for them who are so committed to the idea that things could change for the better if people were more diligent and more attentive. Over here in America, people who are very directly affected by their government and what the government does, a lot of people just do not give a shit, man. I might talk about it later, I might not, but like it reminds me a little bit of how I think this was just today, or maybe it was last night. But Cuomo put out a New York housing policy because, of course, he's running for the governor, or not governorship, the mayorship, and he's going to win probably, even though it's Andrew Cuomo. And he it was Chat GPT. It was a Chat GPT. It was nonsensical. He put out a housing. He was like, "Here's my solution to New York City's housing problems, which are very real." And he just had Chat GPT write one and put it out. It wasn't proofread. It was incomprehensible. It made no sense. Just put that out there. He's still going to win. Why is Cuomo still relevant? Because voter participation for the Democratic primary in New York City is something like 25%. I'm telling you, man, we deserve to burn. We really do. We really do. Why are Americans so fat and lazy? We've been conditioned to be like this, but that doesn't change the fact that we're like this. You know what I mean? It's like how being autistic doesn't make it okay to like invade people's personal space or make them uncomfortable. It's just like something you have to factor in and take into consideration. It's kind of where we're at. Maybe there are factors that conspired to make Americans fat and lazy and stupid and ugly and dumb and have bad taste and be dumb and stupid and fat. But that doesn't mean we're not accountable for what we do. Yeah, I might as well show it since I mentioned it. Look at that. Andrew Cuomo used ChatGPT to help write the housing plan he released this weekend, which included several nonsensical passages. The plan even cites the ChatGPT on a section about the Rent Guidelines Board. Phenomenal. Oh, yeah, of course. I would love to for Hellgate NYC. Provide my email to read the full story. I don't even care. I'm just going to read the first paragraph. Also, you. The 29-page plan itself is fairly unremarkable. Much of it is spent talking about Cuomo's accomplishments as governor and laying out how hard it is to find and build affordable housing in NYC. Some of the larger, thornier issues, like funding NYCHA and dealing with homelessness, are punted, labeled as to be addressed in a separate policy paper. Man. Cuomo does differ from some of his Democratic rivals by coming out against rezonings in low-density neighborhoods. Oh, how brave. How brave, Cuomo. You're opposed to rezoning low-density neighborhoods in New York City? Oh, man. You got your finger on the pulse of the times, you know? We all know who his constituency is. I'm not putting in my email in. Later, it's ChatGPT. I don't care. Will anyone care anymore? Nobody cares about anything. He's going to win, and New York City will deserve it. How much power does Cuomo have? Well, he'd be the mayor of New York City, which is quite a bit of power. The mayor of New York City has more power than most governors. Don't speak that into existence. He's polling double what the next leading person is polling. Zoran, thank you. Is Adams just done then? Yes. He's still better than Eric Adams? Yeah, maybe, I guess. If that's the standard we're going by. Two bad bitches. Exactly. That was an old poll. We don't have more recent ones. Then I'll change my, I guess, tone on the issue when I see a more recent and better poll. Voter apathy here seems really unsolvable. Yeah, probably.